All right, next up, Samira Sunderji. She is a fourth-year Honours Kinesiology student at McMaster University and is highly engaged with her academic community. This is her second AIC Conference presentation, and she is looking forward to learning more from her colleagues, networking with others, and furthering her passions for writing and education. Her presentation will divulge into the research behind one of her recently published books, and will leave us all in awe as we hear about our mysterious past and how mysterious it truly can be. Here she is with the Voynich Manuscript, uncovering our mysterious past.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. So again, hi, my name is Samira, and today I will be speaking to you about a very famous text that has ultimately left scholars, historians, and cryptologists puzzled, frustrated, and honestly clueless. So first, I would like to thank the AIC for this amazing opportunity. And I would like to note that this presentation has been adapted for this conference and is based off of some research I conducted when I was writing the book, What in the World is the Voynich Manuscript? And this book was written alongside other undergraduate students across Canada this past summer. And while this is a relatively shorter presentation on the Voynich Manuscript and all of its secrets and mysteries, if any of you are interested in learning more about it, want some more details on the nitty-gritty stuff, you can definitely look at the book on Amazon, Lulu, or other bookstore websites. But yeah, so without further delay, let's get right into it. So this is a brief overview of what I will be covering today. Again, not a comprehensive, very detailed list of everything the Voynich Manuscript, whatever is known about the Voynich Manuscript, but probably the most important details about it. All right, so let's start with what even is the Voynich Manuscript? So these are some general highlights, as I like to call it, and like the main facts about the manuscript itself. Like if you did a quick Google search about the Voynich Manuscript, this is probably what will come up on your search page. So in the simplest of terms, the Voynich Manuscript is a mysterious and ultimately very famous piece of text or codex, which originated from the 15th century. So that's also the time around like the Middle Ages. And it's likely to be a cipher, which is an algorithm for encryption. So you can think of it like a code that has yet to be decoded and deciphered. So its current location is in the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. And it has actually been there since 1969. And we will be going over a timeline of ownership right after this, actually. And it's named after Wilfrid Voynich, who was a Polish-American book dealer who acquired the text in 1912. And while the Voynich Manuscript is named after him, I would like to emphasize that he is not the writer of it. He did not write it. He just acquired it in 1912. And also, even after centuries worth of decoding attempts, even by the organizations such as the CIA, who you would think would have unlimited resources and probably everything that they have on belt, but they've still been unsuccessful as well, which just kind of shows just how complex something like the Voynich Manuscript is. All right, and in terms of the manuscript's details, it's approximately 240 pages of text and illustrations. However, it's thought that a lot of the pages are actually missing. And there's gaps in the page numbers, there's no index, and some pages are even blank. So it's probably after it's been, I guess, originated in the 15th century and kind of up till now, pages have probably gone missing from the line of ownership. Also, the pages are made of vellum, which is a type of prepared animal skin that was usually used for writing materials in that time period. Various transcriptions have been created and it's really based on different interpretations and perspectives. And that's what makes it even harder to crack the mysteries and uncover the truth behind the manuscript's true meaning. The manuscript is made up of 120 folios, so you can think of that as pages with text and illustrations on the front and back. And it's separated into 18 quires of various sizes, and those are basically like sections made out of folded parchment. The content of the manuscript can actually be divided into 6 sections. So you have your herbal section, which contains drawings of plants. Then you have your astronomical section, which contains zodiac-like illustrations. You have your biological section, which is more drawings of female anatomy and human figures. Then your cosmological, consisting of circular illustrations, pharmaceutical, which now we would think of as chemistry-like illustrations, and herbal plants thought to be used in a medical context, and stars, which are actually called recipes. And this section, the stars section, is thought to be the most dense with text, and it has stars in its margins. Now, moving on to the timeline of ownership of the Voynich manuscript. So I will note that this is a suspected timeline of ownership, and I say that because there are several gaps between the manuscript's conception until now. Also, I would like to emphasize that each individual who claimed to have been the owner between each of these time periods spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of resources trying to decode the manuscript. So we start off in the 15th century, where carbon dating analysis confirms that the vellum used dates back to a time between 1408 to 1438. Then we jump into the 16th to the 17th century, where it came into possession of an emperor who paid roughly what we would know as about 4.5 pounds of gold for the book and all of its mysteries. Within the same time frame, a pharmacist by the name of Tepanic gets a hold of it. We then jump into the rough decade of the 1630s, where George Beresch, an alchemist from Prague, is actually in possession of the mystery text. And he learns that there is a Jesuit scholar by the name of Kircher who claimed to have been able to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphics, and then he became in possession of the text. Following his death, there was about 200 to 300 years that were unaccounted for. And then we switch right back into when Wilfrid Voynich becomes the owner of the text. And it's actually thought that he acquired the manuscript while he was on a trip, and he came across a trunk that had the text inside of it. So it was very much by chance. Following his death, he moved from Europe to New York, and so his wife became the owner of it until she unfortunately passed away. And soon the manuscript found a way to Hans Kraus, who was an American book dealer, and he then donated the book in 1969 to Yale University, where it currently resides. So we can see just how long it's been. It went from Europe to New York to now where Yale University is. So, and there's quite a bit that is unaccounted for. So I guess it's everyone's hope who is researching more about the Voynich manuscript, just finding out who had what when. All right, so why is the Voynich manuscript important, and what could it tell us? So in the European Middle Ages, encryption by code was used because of increased diplomatic activity in that time. So for example, medieval scribes used techniques to encode their message, or alchemists used symbols in scriptures to conceal their illegal activities, because at the time alchemy was thought of as illegal and thought of it was close to like witchcraft, so that was a big no-no. So that's why encryption technologies and the study of cryptology became increasingly sophisticated during this time. So that's why some people think that the manuscript could be a secretive code that was used to convey confidential information that was pertinent to that specific time period, or could it possibly have something to do with the political or economic or religious or social climate of the time. And that actually kind of translates into the second point about the manuscript's importance, because it survived the process of book burning. Now, the deliberate destruction of books by fire was honestly because of a long history of censorship and suppression. And honestly, during that time, the Catholic Church dominated culture and society in general in medieval Europe. So I guess in the simplest way of putting it, fire was a very simple and direct answer to be like, no, this opinion is not accepted in society, and this needs to be taken care of on the side, away from society. They did not want it. And the Catholic Church, being the central institution that it was, it exercised its jurisdiction over a wide range of matters beyond the scope of religion. And so if the manuscript were to contain matters of controversy or had hints of a political uprising or a revolution, it's honestly a miracle that it survived through that process, and that really just stresses the importance of it. So we know that the manuscript had a lot of owners, and so exploring the time period and I guess the civilizations through which it traveled could provide some insight into all the unanswered questions that we have. So we know that Wilfrid Voynich acquired the manuscript in 1912, and the general consensus is that it was purchased in Italy. However, it's undetermined whether or not the Voynich manuscript originated in Italy, or another part of medieval Europe. So the true origin and the birthplace of the Voynich manuscript could honestly give rise to its content. Now, moving on to the last major point, the Middle Ages lasted from the 5th to the 15th century. And while this period in history spanned over 10 centuries, its end marked the transition into a new era, the Renaissance. So the Renaissance developed a completely new culture with the revival of ancient classics, and it spread across Europe from the 14th to the 17th century. And while the Renaissance is most closely associated with Italy, they did have a lot of other countries such as France, England, and Germany. They went through the same type of revolution and social transition periods. So the major intellectual movement of the Renaissance was humanism. And this was a very progressive philosophy for the time. It focused on what it really meant to be a human rather than the importance of religion, which is what the Middle Ages was honestly all about. So it believed in the importance of education, the promotion of civic virtue, which really offered guidance and perspective in life, just like how religion would in the Middle Ages. So since the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the Renaissance kind of overlapped in that period, it's possible that the theory and the movement of humanism and other Renaissance-related themes could shed light on what's actually inside the Voynich Manuscript. So just some concluding thoughts. Where are we now with this Voynich Manuscript? So the Voynich Manuscript pops up in the news every once in a while with news outlets and research articles saying that a new team has finally been able to decode and decipher this most mysterious text in the world. However, this is usually followed up with things like, no, the Voynich Manuscript has not been deciphered. No, the Voynich Manuscript hasn't been decoded, and here's why these failures persist. And why do people keep convincing themselves they've solved this medieval mystery? And now this is not to discourage or shame or put down any of the hardworking researchers and historians who have been clearly putting their blood, sweat, tears into decoding what is known as some of like the most mysterious texts in the world. But it clearly just shows how complex this text is and how it's just so unique. You know, it's equally as fascinating as it is frustrating. So what does all of this mean for the future of the Voynich Manuscript? So despite numerous attempts made to decode the mysteries behind the Voynich Manuscript, will it be a part of history as a forever indecipherable text? I unfortunately don't have that answer for you. Various hypotheses have been presented to describe what wonders the manuscript actually holds, yet there is no scholarly consensus, and we do know some things about it. It's a text like no other, it's written by an anonymous source, with unknown content and illustrations, and as of now in 2021, these questions are still unable to be answered, unfortunately. But the day that the Voynich manuscript is actually able to be decoded and deciphered, it will be a day to remember as one of history's most remarkable achievements. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you have any more questions or if you want to learn more about the Voynich manuscript and all of its mysteries, you can please feel free to contact me, or you can search up that book I was talking about. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Alrighty, Zach, would you like to ask that question there in the chat?
Yeah, sure. So that's to Samira. In your research, did you learn about any other ancient manuscripts that are similar and need decoding?
From what I remember, there was another medieval manuscript. I believe it was called the Voynich Codex. It was also from the medieval time period, and it's like the paper that was used, like how I was speaking about, like the vellum that was used to actually write all this, the text and illustrations. It dated back to around like the 15th, 16th century as well. And from what I remember, that was also unable to be decoded. So, I mean, the fact that there's another text from the same time period, I don't know if that's by coincidence. I don't know if it's written by the same author. I guess these are all questions. But I remember coming across that one when I was researching the Voynich manuscript, and there's probably so many other ones that are probably have gone unreported or probably are stashed somewhere that we don't even know about. So, I mean, that's just, I guess, how fascinating all of these things are when you're decoding certain things. And I guess it's my hope now, after researching all about this, that someone will be able to decode all of these things together, or piece together things from different manuscripts to realize, oh, these are two pieces of the same puzzle, right? So yeah.
All right, thank you very much.